wants to introduce yourself, come on up. No, not yet. We only have 3. Wow, this is good. We're gonna fly through this. Okay, come on up.
Wow, first. So I am Alex Kim, and this is Thank you. Yeah, so this is my home club, and so proud to be part of y'all, and so proud to have won the Republican primary in March. So now it's onward in November. I do have a Democrat. It's a crazy, crazy Democrat race. I actually found out this week that my name is being thrown around as the motivation to organize moms to be into action, because I'm such a gun nut, right? And I am a gun nut, and I'm 24th in this collage because I'm such a gun nut. And I'll just do one of many, but we understand this is like Democrats are finding what they to motivate people to vote at every level. There's some level of apathy among Republicans, not among us, but among our friends, our fellow Republican voters. We have to get them out. All right, I'm just helping across the line. Thank you.
And I want you to text the website, dabneyforjudge.com, to 10 of your friends.
Republican nominee for the 322nd District Court. We've got a lot of work ahead of us this November the 6th, is when everyone sit around and do nothing. Let's get out that vote. It's very important where we're going to be hit. It's hard. There's supposed to be a blue wave. It's going to be a red wave, a real red wave. You've got straight ticket voting. I urge you to come in. There's only one way to vote. That is to vote red. That is to vote Republican. And James Munford, thank you. At 322nd District Court.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Newell, and I am your Republican nominee for the 233rd District Court. I am unopposed in November. However, as been said many times, and as you all well know, that we have to motivate others to get out the vote. I want to ask you to do one thing, or motivate you in one area. There are a lot of people like me who should be voting Republican. They think that people that look like you don't want them. I encourage you to let people you know that they're welcomed in this party, and that we are a party of America, a party of Texas, and the party want to do what's right for us.
A little creaky from the sign work, but it's fun, especially in the rain. I'm Tom Launder, the district clerk for Tarrant County. I hope some of you saw on Facebook the very nice audit that I got quite a bit of play. I do handle your money with care. I collect tens of billions of dollars of money for the state of Texas, Tarrant County, and to hold on behalf of our 27 district courts in Tarrant County. That's a heavy burden, a heavy responsibility, but I think we've met the challenge. If you look at my opponent's background, we don't know what he does. He has no background for it. So I hope you will join with me, share my Facebook and retweet my tweets, and they're out there. Take a look at that, and I hope you'll help keep pays attention to business, follows the rules, and handles your money and your court cases with integrity and with accuracy. And let's turn the blue wave into a mud puddle. Thank you. Tom Launder, District Clerk.
You know, I always tell everybody that I don't write. I know the Tea Party's especially involved in representative government and the Senate races and the representative races, and I get that. I don't write laws, but I can follow them. And in our office, we unapologetically enforce the laws of the state of Texas, and that includes voter fraud. Interestingly, our office has even been written up negatively in Elle magazine. Do you know what that is? ELLE magazine. And now she says it was an accident. It's pretty hard to act. I appreciate your support. I have an opponent, by the way. I have an opponent. He is, his slogans are Black Lives Matter, end mass incarceration. It's all the Democrat slogans that you hear all the time. And he's out there and he's active. I will tell you that his last campaign filing, he was completely funded, 0.75% funded from out of state. He received in the last campaign filing $5,000 contribution from Steve Jobs' widow, a $5,000 contribution from Donald Sussman, you know, the Hillary Clinton $50 million supporter in New York, and a $5,000 contribution from an intellectual property lawyer in Florida, and a pittance from attorneys and people here in Tarrant County. The Democrats are interested in Tarrant County. They are especially interested in DA races. I need your help, not your money, but your support. I have yard signs. You know, we have websites, Facebook. We have all that, right? I just need your help. Please stand with me and with the other Republicans, and please take a yard sign on your way out, and I appreciate your support so I can keep enforcing the laws that our good representatives and senators give us.
Okay, if you are here for the very first time, will you please raise your hand? Ooh, that's fantastic. Okay, so leave your hands up. Jen, would you ask them to bring the little bags? I don't know, every month we have to ask for these things. So leave your hands up and they will give you something, okay? As soon as Janet comes back in. And we're missing like, I don't know, 30 or 40 people tonight. So I'm really glad you first timers are here filling in for us. Here they come. Okay, leave your hands up. Let's see, what can you put up my slide about finances? Okay, we don't do this very often at the Tea Party because we almost always have all of our needs met. But we have kind of hit a slump, okay? So we're always very clear with you how we spend our money, where our money comes from, you know, very fiscally responsible and all that. But I want you to take a look at this. So a couple years ago, y'all hired an assistant for me because I pretty much said I was gonna step down if I didn't get one because I just couldn't do it anymore. So we have about $600 a month goes to our assistant. That includes her salary and her, you know, taxes and all that other garbage that goes into that. Okay, social media, we spend about $250 a month. That's our email system, our text messages that come out, ads on Facebook, we pay for our website services, all that. This venue comes to around $750 a month. Pizza sales break even every month, so we don't make any money or lose any money. It's just a service that we do if y'all are coming here late in the evening, having a time to eat. We get monthly contributions from a couple years ago when y'all signed up to do auto drafts, not the ones that go to the PAC. This is all the finances for our regular Tea Party. The PAC is all of our political action. This is money that's coming in monthly as contributions, $500. When we pass the hat, we collect about $300. So we have an $800 shortfall every single month. So it used to be, and that doesn't include if we're paying our speakers or if we print flyers or anything like that. So it used to be that when we had a fundraiser for the Tea Party, y'all would get out your checkbooks and you would give us money, right? So a couple of years ago, we had one, I think it was probably the one where we had her brand, where we had Al, where we raised at the Putnams, or maybe, anyway, y'all have been to our fundraiser. So we raised like $20-something thousand, like $25,000 something. We've been skating on that for a couple years now. And we have about 10 months till we have to shut our doors. So we're gonna have to make up this $800 loss. So we have about 100 to 150 people that come to our meetings every month. If y'all would just do an auto draft of $10 a month, we could quit stressing over this and quit having board meetings about this and asking you for money all the time. Although we'll still ask for money for the PAC. I just want to be clear. PAC is totally separate. That's how we put out our mailers and stuff like that. But we have these little forms that Fran created that, you know, were supposed to be filled out tonight so y'all could do your monthly donations, but somebody forgot to bring them. So we are going to fill those out tonight. But you can go to our website, anytrtparty.com, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, and there's a link that says donations. You can go on there and you can donate money, a one-time or a monthly contribution, okay? So because we have a smaller crowd tonight, and because we don't have the forms, I will be readdressing this next month. Yes? through me, which is, I'm not comfortable with that. Like, it's not for some reason you guys want to quit donating, you know? So, but that's the system. We use Pyrex, which is very common with conservative organizations. So right now it goes through me, but we can look into changing that if it's not changed yet. So anyway, all that to say, I'll send out an email with the link, but we're gonna have to step it up, okay? What else do I need to talk about? We've got the candidates, we've got first-time guests, financial needs. Okay, let's do something fun. Everybody take a look at Chris tonight. Come show us what you look like. Okay, so as soon as we heard that Donald Trump was coming, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't care where in Texas it is, we're gonna caravan down as Northeast Tarrant Tea Party, and we're gonna cover the front row, okay? So we decided we wanted t-shirts. Here's the t-shirts. This is not a fundraiser. We are not taking on organizing this, but Jennifer, stand up, Jennifer, show everybody who you are. Jennifer does t-shirts. She's gonna do these. You order them directly from her website. She'll take care of all of it, okay? Huh?
My business cards here.
She has business cards. She can get one from her. But as soon as we find out exactly where the event is gonna be with Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and whatever, and we'll be pushing these, but I just thought it was fun and we wanted to show you. So, she also does Ted Cruz signs on her website for $6, and she'll deliver them to your house. So that's pretty cool too.
And I can do the big ones if you want big ones.
Any size, whatever, yeah. So, what else do we want to cover? New t-shirts, signs, candidates. Oh, I have candidates on here twice, but you don't get to speak twice. Okay. Events. So, Friday night at my house, we're having a party for Deanna Metzger. Y'all know who Deanna is? Deanna is going to be the next member of the Freedom Caucus in the Texas House, okay? That's what we're shooting for. She is over in Dallas County, spicy little Latino, against a spicy little Latino woman, okay? Except that one is spicy because she's drunk and gets DWIs and such. So, but we're really trying to get Deanna elected. She needs help from Tarrant County because we have it going on and Dallas County doesn't really. So we're having a party at my house. It's Friday night. The information has been on every email, you know, on the side of every email, we have a calendar. So it's on that, you just click on that and you get my address and the time and just come on over, okay? Open to anybody. And then next Saturday, the 22nd, raise your hand if you're going to Jonathan Stickland's fundraiser. Oh, good. I'm surprised that there's not more of you. But anyway, Northeast Tarrant Tea Party has 5 tables already full. We have 1 seat left at our 5th table, so if anybody wants it, let me know, I'll put your name down, and we can always start another table. So let me know if you want to sit with us. Yeah, it's dark and I don't have my glasses on. October 8th, we will have the Freedom Caucus here. Matt Krause is speaking tonight, he'll be speaking again, he'll be here October 8th. We'll have a bunch of Freedom Caucus guys here to talk about preparing for the next session. And then October 17th, should I go ahead and make that announcement? Yes. I'm so excited about what we got. October 17th, nobody knows this yet, you guys are the first to know, but we got Chuck Norris.
Wow.
Okay?
Whoa.
So he has said he doesn't want to speak. He said, I just want to do a fundraiser for Northeast Tarrant Tea Party. So he is going to let us sell some tickets to come in and meet him and do a picture before our big Get Out the Vote event with Dan Patrick, and Konni will be there, and we'll have anybody in Tarrant County on the ballot will be there, okay? No, whoa. Not the Democrats and not Giovanni, okay?
Same thing.
Let's see, well, Giovanni can come and see how it's supposed to be done, but he won't be on the stage.
With one person watching.
Let's see, there's so many other events going on, I just wanted to call your attention to, oh, did I say Louis Gohmert? No. Did I forget that name? He's gonna be there too. He's our main speaker for the Get Off the Boat thing on October 17th. Okay, I think the rest of it, you know, I've been talking to you too long, so the rest of it can wait, but Fran, you're next. Did I miss anything?
Yes. Well,
Okay, we're gonna pass the hat now.
all right,
Definitely.
Just pass it up and down the aisle.
Yeah, okay. Oh, Maggie, come on up, I'm sorry, I knew I forgot something. Maggie and then Fran.
Yes. Remember that one.
Said I could have 30 seconds. But you know, I can't talk and get it done. But George P. Bush has decided he's going to sign this master plan. So it involves moving the cenotaph. So the Freedom Caucus went and talked to him and asked him not so fast and to wait, but he's not waiting. but we're gonna have a lawsuit. But, what I wanted to talk to and read this letter, I'm a member of the Daughters Republic of Texas. And I don't know if y'all heard in the news this last week about the, our State Board of Education wanting to do. With it, let me just read the letter. Fellow daughters, a proposal goes before the State Board of Education on this Tuesday to remove the adjective heroic from the discussion of the Alamo defenders and to stop teaching Travis's letter. I include the letter's text below. Surely we can all agree that this document is an important primary source, and as much as it must be taught. Written from the hand of the one who was there, one who not only witnessed history, but made history. Travis's letter is the essence of what it took to win freedom for the citizens of the Republic of Texas. Freedoms we still enjoy today. Do you sanction depriving our children and their children the knowledge of the tremendous courage of our Alamo defenders and great sacrifices that were made to gain liberty? Travis and the Alamo defenders stood for our ancestors against tyranny in 1836. Will you stand for them today? Please call or email the State Board of Education. As I said before Tuesday morning, but I think we have till November to protest commandancy of the Alamo Bear, February 1836. To the people of Texas and all Americans in the world, fellow citizens and compatriots, I am besieged by 1,000 or more of the Mexicans under Santa Ana. I have sustained a continual bombardment and cannonade for 24 hours and have not longer at discretion. Otherwise, the garrison are to be put to the sword if the fort is taken. I have answered the demand with a cannon shot, and our flag still waves proudly over the walls. I shall never surrender or retreat. Then I call on you in the name of liberty, of patriotism, and everything dear to the American character to come to our aid with all dispatch. The enemy is receiving reinforcements daily, and I will no doubt increase to 3,000 or 4,000, and will no doubt increase to 3,000 or 4,000 in 4 or 5 days. If this call is neglected, I am determined to sustain myself as long as possible and die like a soldier who never forgets what is due to his own honor and that of his country. Victory or death. William Merritt Travis. And this is from Barbara Stevens, President General, Daughters of the Republic of Texas. They took care of our Alamo for 110 years, and now they're wanting to rewrite history. We need your help. Call this, thank you.
Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Fran Rhodes. I'm on the Tea Party Board and Steering Committee, and it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker tonight is Mr. Bob Kulik. Bob is an entrepreneur, a businessman, and an adventurer, and has had a very interesting life. But when he retired after selling a couple of different businesses, he landed in prison. Prison ministry, actually. His work as a board member for Center for Church Renewal, as well as Awana Lifeline Prison Ministry, now takes him into prisons around the country and even to foreign lands, and Hannah's Gift Program for women. These programs work to break down the generational cycle of incarceration. Upon completion of the year-long program, the graduates are presented with one of Dr. Getz's Life Essential Study Bibles. The programs have proven to dramatically reduce recidivism rates while healing families. Today, in addition to his work on those boards, he also serves on the advisory board of Wingman Ministries, a men's ministry founded by former Dallas Cowboy Chad Hennings. He enjoys traveling as his wife of 36 years and watching their youngest daughter build up her career as an artist. He's got literature and books and things out in the front, and I'm sure you're going to want to check that out before you leave tonight. But please welcome Mr. Bob Cooley.
Thank you.
introduction was much better than how I usually introduce myself. I introduce myself as a retired pizza delivery guy who's now a board guy training to be an astronaut when I'm not in prison. It usually causes people to ask questions or back away real slowly. But yeah, the pizza delivery guy was one of the partners in CC's Pizza, the CC's Pizza restaurant chain. We also had a distribution company that distributed to all the restaurants, so I was a pizza delivery guy. And since we own the space, I always wanted to do within the team. When I'm not in prison, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. To talk to you about the prison ministry that we do, and we're going to hear a lot about the prison reform that's going on in the state of Texas. One of the things I don't have to worry about is that this group is not a group that we have to worry about not being proud of being Americans, and especially being proud of being Texans. I'm going to give you some other reasons to be proud to be a Texan tonight, if you don't already have enough. But to start the whole program, to start the whole process, I have to take you back almost 20 years, actually a little bit over 20 years, to Angola Prison in Louisiana. That's the penitentiary in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At that time, it was known as the bloodiest prison in the country. On average, they had a stabbing a day, a murder every 3 days, and a third of the prison population were sex slaves. A new warden came in there by the name of Burl Kane, and Burl looked at it and he goes, the only thing that's going to fix this is moral rehabilitation. The only thing that morals is the Bible. And so he started working on that process. He started talking to the inmates and saying, well, you know, why are you acting like this? What are you worried about? What are your fears, concerns? He found out that the thing that they were most concerned about, now remember, stabbing a day, a murder every 3 days, a third of the prison population of sex slaves, the thing that consistently came up with these inmates was, I don't want my children to follow me into prison. Typically, a parent in prison, you're 70% more likely to end up in prison yourself. And so Burl King looked at this and he says, well, that's their fear. How do I start from that? He didn't know what to do. So the first thing he did, he knew that Awana, based out of the Chicago area, is involved with children's ministries. They start kids clubs and things like that in churches around the country, around the world. And so he called Awana and said, I've got these prisoners that are concerned about their children. What do I do? Can you help me? And so Awana Lifeline was born out of that. 5 years ago, they started in Angola about 13 years ago. 5 years ago, we had 20 programs going on in 5 states. Today, we have 368 programs in 30 states and 9 countries around the country. One of the things that is pretty amazing too, is you start talking about some of the other countries that it's in. Dominican Republic is one that really stands out. They liked the program so much, they saw what a difference it had in the inmates and in the recidivism rate. Typical recidivism within Dominican Republic is 86%. And they started the Malcadez program in there, started reconnecting these inmates with their kids, and the recidivism rate went from up in the upper 80s to 3. And they looked at this and said, this is amazing. We need to do more of this. And so they actually, last year, passed a law that if you work in the prison system, whether you're a guard, you're a warden, whatever you do in the prison system, you must go through the Malcadez program yourself. So you understand it, you know how to teach it, and you can pass it on to the inmates. So a little sidetrack there, but when Burl King started this program, he could see what was happening to the inmates there as they got reconnected with their families. The fighting started to go down. All the problems within the prison started to drop dramatically. They then started working on the next step in the process, which they actually started a seminary down in Angola prison, where these inmates, and the average sentence in Angola prison is 92 years. Gives them the idea. Most of, that's the average sentence, most of them are in there for life. So he started the seminary down there, and inmates that are long-term or life inmates can go through a full 4-year degree, get a degree, and then once they get that degree, they go out to the other prisons throughout Louisiana as field ministers, teaching the Malcadez teaching biblical principles and things like that. So started it there. A number of years ago, the great state of Texas decided this is working so well, we could do the same thing here. So several years, let's see what's it been now, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I believe it is, the seminary in Darrington Prison, just south of Houston, started in Texas. How many of you know about the Darrington Seminary? Okay, a few of you. Most of you don't. It seems to be a very well-kept secret around the state, but there's the program there. Again, full 4-year seminary degree, Southwestern Theological Seminary professors teach the program down there. An inmate goes through a process, has to be approved to go into it, and again, needs to be a long-term inmate or a life inmate. So he goes into a 4-year study program at Darrington Seminary, Darrington Prison / Seminary. Once he graduates, he goes out to the other prison in Texas. We now, as of last year, we have filled every maximum security prison with field ministers. We're now working on the medium security prisons and work our way through. I believe it'll take 8 years to get every prison in the state of Texas with field ministers in. I've talked to some of the wardens that have these, and they say it's absolutely amazing. It changed the whole culture of the prison is unbelievable. You've got, there's one, he has 26 dorms within his prison, and he said today, now after 3 years of having field ministers in there, 24 of those 26 dorms have prayer circles every night. He says when a bus shows up in front of the prison with new inmates in it, the field ministers are the first ones out there greeting the new inmates and saying, work. I'm here to help you 24/7. I'm available to you at any time along the way. So these field ministers in there, part of their 4-year program is also to go through the Malcadez program. So they get a chance to learn it themselves, and then when they go into the prisons, they help facilitators outside to teach these classes. So when an inmate is learning the program, and typically facilitators will come in once a week, but they get some homework to do in between those weekly meetings. So when the inmate has questions or is unsure about things, he can go to one of these field ministers and talk to him, be consulted by him. It really works out very well. The Malachi Dance program and the Hannah's Gift program for women, basically what the program does is take them through, the first book is kind of a step-by-step, what does it mean to be a Christian? So many of us were raised in church. I was raised in church, so I knew what sanctification meant. I knew what baptism meant. All the words that we throw around growing up in church, a lot of inmates have never heard before. So they look at that, they hear those things to somebody preaching to them and go, I don't even know what he's talking about. I'm not going to stay here. So they walk out of the program. The Malachi Dance program, the first book, starts that way, defining the terms that we all use as Christians so they understand. It's also, when the first time I read through one of those books, I read it and I was thinking, this is so simplistic. And then I realized typical inmate around the country reads on 4th grade level. So these books are to a point where they're very easy for any of us to read, easy for most inmates to read too, because it's on a 4th grade level. Of course, there are all levels of it, but that's the average throughout the system. So that's the first book. Books are based off of Dr. Gene Getz, whose word I also serve on. His book that he wrote back in the 1970s, never been out of print, called The Measure of a Man. It talks about the principles of what it means to be an ethical, biblical-based man. So the next 2 books takes them through that process. The last book in the program is Family Reconciliation. Come back into the kid, bring the kids back in. Even if you've got a life sentence, how do you reconnect with those kids, and how do you be a father or a mother to those children, even from behind bars? One of my favorite stories about this, there's a guy by the name of Darren Hutchinson down in Angola prison. He goes by Hutch. He told us the story. He went through the Malachi Dance program, learned all the processes. He had been totally disconnected from his daughter for 14 years, totally estranged from her, hadn't talked to her. He went through the program, and he started reaching out to her, started making phone calls to her, started writing to her. Bit by bit, they got back together, they started talking to each other, she came to visit. She saw the change that had been made in her father. As time went on, their relationship got closer and closer. She eventually ended up getting married and had a little baby boy, and named that boy Malachi, as a way of honoring what the program did to her dad and changing. I'm sorry, I get goosebumps every time I tell that story. It's one of those things that when you hear it coming from this guy who had been totally, has a life sentence in Angola prison. He'll never get out of there, but he's a great father. I tell people some of the best fathers that I've met are inmates in prisons around the country. I had the chance to go to the first federal prison that we started the program in about 1.5 years ago and graduate a bunch of guys out of the prison up in Rochester, Minnesota. It's the federal medical prison. Guys there are 2 guys that I met up there that were gang leaders. One was a gang leader down in, from Rochester's down, but up in Detroit. And another one was the leader of the largest street gang in Chicago, the Black Disciples. They had both gone through the Malachi Dad's program. Another guy that was in the prison, he had I really, after going through this, I've really gotten encouraged to go to seminary. I really want to go to seminary. Can you help me with this? And so I was actually down, I called a number of seminaries, and everybody said, no, we don't do correspondence courses, can't do that, can't work on it. I was down in Angola prison, actually graduated 125 guys from the Malachi Dad's program down there. And that night, we're having dinner. I was sitting next to the chaplain of Angola prison, and we're talking about a variety of different things. And in the course of it, I said, by the way, I've got this guy in federal prison that wants to go to seminary. Can you help me in any way? And he goes, oh, sure. He pulls out a pen and paper and writes down a name and phone number and slides over. I said, well, does he know you? Can I use your name? And he goes, oh, better than that. He reaches for his phone, calls this guy and says, hey, I'm sitting here having dinner with a guy. He's got a guy in prison that wants to go to seminary. Here, talk to him. And he hands me the phone. So I start talking to him. He heads up a seminary up in the Chicago area. And as I explained to him, it's so funny. He says, our last staff meeting, we decided that we wanted to do prison ministry as an outreach, but we had no idea how to start. And he says, all of a sudden I get a phone call saying, hey, can you start this program for us? So this guy, James Stone, was the guy who started it, started the seminary program up there. And I went up to visit him and a couple other guys up in Rochester. And one of the guys took me out to the yard to meet Royal, this guy that ran the gang down over in Detroit, and came up to him and he said, hey, Bob's got this seminary that James had started. He said, would you be interested in starting it? And Royal goes, yeah, I guess so. And I thought that was kind of strange. And the next day he sends me an email and says, I'm so sorry about my reaction to that. But he said, I've been getting this calling that I should go to seminary. And he said, I thought, how ridiculous. I'm a felon, I'm in prison. Nobody's gonna want to help me out with this thing. There's no way I can do it. He says, I made the decision and work on that. And then all of a sudden you come walking up and say, hey, you want to go to seminary? So he is now in seminary. He's in his 3rd year. The guy who was ran the Black Disciple Street Gang in Chicago, he's now in his 3rd year of seminary. Last time I saw him, he came up to me. This guy is a guy that if you saw him walking down the street, you'd change to the other side of the street. A big guy, and he came up to me in the prison and grabbed my hands with both of his hands and said, Bob, thank you so much for what you're doing. He says, when I get out, I want to be a leader again. I just want to be a different type of leader this time. Those are the type of lives that are being changed through the Malachi Dad's program, through the Hands Give program. I tell stories about the women too, that go on and on. It's been a fantastic program. It's something I never thought that I would be involved in. When I retired, when I sold the company and retired, I had this stack of books I was going to read. I was going to ride my motorcycle around the perimeter of the country and write a book about it. I've got it outlined, I've got it buried somewhere, but I'm spending more time doing this than I was when I was working. Finally, the last thing I want to say is when we, after we graduate classes from Malachi Dad's or the Hands Give program, we do go in there, and Dr. Jean Getz has recently written a study Bible. I've got one out there, I've got a couple of them out there, if you take a look at it, if you'd like. It's the first multimedia study Bible. So there's actually 1,500 life lessons embedded in the text of the Bible. People actually use it as a seminary course. There's a school set up in Uganda to use that as a seminary course. It has to still get access to seminaries. But we present them with a $70 leather-bound Bible when they graduate from the Malachi Dads and Hymns Gift program. And in a lot of cases, this is the first time in their lives that they walked across the stage to the applause of people in a room and receive a diploma for something they've accomplished. So thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it. If I've got the table out there, I'd love to talk to you. We've got a number of Kirby's one, there's several others that go into prisons and do prison ministry. Talk to any of them, talk to me. Would love to have you come to prison. It only takes one. I tell people, so many people are afraid to come. I tell them, come with me once. If you don't want to go again, I'll never talk to you about it again. But 9 times out of 10, people walk out of the prison, the first thing they say is, when can I come back to you? There are a couple of questions. Do we have time for?
Sure.
Yes.
Understand, what is the name of the program, Malachi?
Malachi Dads is the program for the men.
Malachi
Dads. Yeah, Malachi Dads. So it's based off the last line, Malachi 4:6. It says he'll return the hearts of the fathers to their children and children to their fathers. And then Hannah's gift program is basically the same thing, talking about Hannah and her son. Very good. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So, our next two speakers, they're working together, right?
Yeah.
Well, they don't need any introduction. We've all known them for more than we want to count. But, on the subject of prisons, they are both working in their respective houses in the legislature on prison reform legislation, and that's what they're going to talk to us about tonight. So we have Matt Krause, House Representative from District 93, and he's my representative. Not yours, it's mine. And Miss Konni Burton, our state senator from Senate District.
Okay, all right, how much time do we have for both of us? Timekeeper?
45 minutes.
40, oh, okay,
Now, Q&A.
okay, great. And do I know how to do this?
I'll be right back.
He'll be right back. Okay, you know what, so that'll give me an opportunity, because I just have some slides of some legislation that I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about what we've tried to do the last couple of sessions. What I might do is just go straight to the last session instead of going over the other one too. But anyway, I want to tell you really quickly, because Maggie was up here talking about the SBOE. I have the capacity of senator to my own, to Pat Hardy, who is our SBOE member. Absolutely, horrified that they could be taking out the word heroic and cutting out the letter. I have written that to them. I've CC'd the rest of the SBOE members. I will tell you, it just went out today. I was horrified when I read that article. I will tell you, I've already gotten a couple of responses back from the SBOE members, and so far, they're saying this is unacceptable to us as well, because what they have to do is okay the what was it called? It was a work group. It was a work group actually that proposed these particular things to do. And so, but that doesn't, I'm not saying that you shouldn't call your SBO, I would say it was Pat Hardy for everybody here, right? It's a huge district, right? So still call Pat Hardy or email and let her know about your concerns about that, because I'm very concerned about that when I read it. Okay. Okay. And maybe Matt Krause wants to say something.
I agree. No, I agree. In fact, so I put it on social media, this whole thing about being heroic, and I had some people actually come back at me, and I said, so do you not think that the Alamo defenders were heroic? I said, no, we think they're heroes. We just don't think we should be having those kind of value judgments in education. I'm saying, you're right, that is a value judgment, but it's based in fact, right? I mean, and so then I asked, okay, so are there Alamo defenders you don't think are heroic? Or were there heroic people in the Mexican army that you want recognized? Or did you think the whole exercise was that? So it's so funny that people are just against things, but they don't really know why they're against things a lot of times. And so when you drill down deep, they don't have good answers. They just think, oh, you can't say they were heroic because that's not a nuanced enough approach to everything that was taking place. Well, I think we all agree that if 180 people know that they're sacrificing their life for a cause greater than themselves and willing to stay there and give up their lives, that is heroic. And so I don't think there's any doubt that, I really don't think they're gonna take the recommendation at the end of the day, but you wanna make sure you give them enough cover and enough reason to say, no, we heard from our constituents loud and clear that this is not what we're supposed to do. So, should we get into criminal justice reform too? So we'll just start, and I'll tell you, when I ran for the first time in 2010, and then when I was successful in 2012, criminal justice reform was not on my radar at all. First, actually, I want to say to Bob, this guy, as he said at the end, he could just be living a life of leisure. He could just be, kind of relaxing, enjoying all the incredible things that he did in the business world for decades, and just kind of enjoying that during this phase of life. But he hasn't. I know you're working harder now than ever. I have a great amount of respect and admiration for you. So thank you for what you're doing. Scripture never talks about retirement, and you're doing that to the fullest. So great job. Criminal justice reform, nothing I ever thought about. Then I went to a Texas Public Policy Foundation briefing, and they started talking about the conservative case for criminal justice reform, and it kind of blew my mind. I never thought about it. I thought if you're a bad person, you get caught by the law, you need to go to jail, you need to spend your time. Then we started talking about the fallout from what happens when that person goes to jail when maybe they shouldn't. First thing they said is we should be putting people in jail that are scared, not mad at. And I thought, oh, that's a great way to look at it. So many times we have so many laws on the books that we're just mad at people or think they made the wrong choice, so we put them in jail. Well, what happens when you put somebody in jail? You take them away from their family that they can no longer provide for their family. Right? What do they now have to do? They have to rely usually on the government for their living and subsistence. Now, on that person who was providing their living is in jail. What happens to that person while they're in jail? Well, for about 2 or 3 years, they do nothing but kind of have a master apprenticeship in mind, right? I mean, that's kind of what they're learning, and from other people who are criminals, what they need to do. You have all these people that the state's having to take care of now with state resources, whose life is stagnant, learning things that they shouldn't do. They get out of jail, and what happens? We make re-entry so hard for them back into society, where that's where they live. What they can, after a while they get frustrated and they say, well, I can't find a job. I can no longer provide for my family the way I need to or that I did before going into jail. So then they remember, oh yeah, the last 2 or 3 years I've learned how to be a criminal. So then they go back into that and recidivism goes up. So they find themselves in this vicious cycle. So now you've got state resources that are playing into it. You've got people who are constantly in and out of our criminal justice system, costing us even more tax dollars. You're taking people away from their families. You're separating families when we're supposed to be upholding the value of the traditional family, making sure we can do what we can to keep those people tight. And then you're also not allowing these people to have the dignity of work once they get out. When you don't have the dignity of work or the ability to earn success the way you want to, it just takes kind of a piece of you, and it kind of takes some of your soul, and then you're left in a bad place. So started thinking about all these things and thinking, we really should make a difference here. It's one area that I can think of where the government really can affect a lot of good, right? I mean, we're in control of our correctional system. We're in control of our penal system. Who goes to jail for how long? What happens when they get out? What happens before they go? And so that's why I got really passionate about it. I think if you're wanting to keep the family structure together, we need to do that. I think if you want to watch taxpayer dollars, this is a good area for you. On so many levels that we conservatives espouse principles and beliefs on, criminal justice reform fits into it. Now, there are some people that want to go way, way, way far and not never put anybody in jail again. We can't do that, right? There has to be some kind of punishment for some of these crimes. We can't go that far. But I think there is kind of a happy medium in there where you're still punishing the people and putting them away that need to be there, while also allowing the dignity of the people who don't need to be there to lead full lives. And even those people, after they paid their debt to society, we still kind of look at them as kind of like a scarlet letter when they come out with that felon on them, whether it's job applications, housing applications. Once you paid your debt to society, you should have paid your debt to society. You shouldn't have any lingering scars. which is one reason I'm frustrated about the driver responsibility program as well. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but it's this program that anytime, whether it's some kind of violation that you get fined for and penalized for, and then the system keeps fining you and penalizing you, and fining you and penalizing you years after the infraction is happening, years after you paid off. I had one guy reach out to me on social media the other day, ended up paying $12,000, having to pay $12,000 in fees and costs for one violation that he had 6 years before. And when you can't pay that, then obviously they come after you, and it's just a terrible system. So I think criminal justice reform as a whole is something that conservatives need to be a part of, something we need to be acting on.
Sorry.
No.
He was like, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. No,
No, that's right. So, are you ready?
no, keep going.
No, okay, excellent. Okay, so.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Are you ready?
I'm pretty good. You're good.
Is that one on?
Keep talking.
Is that one on?
Hello? Yeah. We'll talk in tandem.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So it was exactly what Matt is saying. It's kind of funny, interesting. I always say that too when I'm talking to people. I didn't run for office because of criminal justice reform, right? It was not even anything I ever thought of. And then I landed on the criminal justice committee and realized how much this is our bailiwick, y'all. And we really need to understand that. We want limited in all areas of government. And this is an area that, let me see if I'm doing this right, which can literally, sorry, hang on a second, which can literally life, liberty, and property, right? I mean, this is the area that can do all three of it. And these are the things that we want to defend, that conservatives defend. And so we really, this is something that we need to embrace. And it's also an area of, common ground. And there's not many of those anymore these days, right? So this is, so anyway, when I landed on it, I realized how much it is our bailiwick, how much we should be, so just to give you an idea, the Senate Criminal Justice Committee, what we have jurisdiction over is the Texas, bills, legislation, deal with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and Texas Juvenile Justice Department and other state agencies, bills amending or creating a criminal offense. Policy area examples would be law enforcement, court processes and systems, corrections, sentencing, jail, parole, probation, and reentry. And obviously I haven't touched on all of that yet. Been down there for 2 sessions, but certainly haven't delved into all of these, and I'm still learning very much. You don't have to read all this, this is really for me reading. But just so back in 2015, to give you an idea, so HB 324, and again, I'm a senator, so my bills are SBs, but a lot of the Senate bills languish in the House.
It's true.
We have a lot of trouble. We do have a new speaker coming in, so hopefully we'll have some changes in that. So, a lot of these have an HB too, but they're, like a House member will carry the same bill as you, and you just, whatever gets through the process soonest is how it comes out. But this HB 324 was relating to a requirement that a peace officer obtain a search warrant before conducting a body cavity search during a traffic stop. There was an actual incidence of this in Dallas, I think it was 2013, and it was a female cop, it was a female doing the search, but in my mind, you need to have a search warrant in order to do that. So this was legislation that we put forth. HB 2286 relating to the eligibility of certain victims of trafficking of persons. So basically for an order of non-disclosure. So a lot of times what happens is women are trafficked, right? They are put into prostitution. They're not willingly doing this. They are put into the field of prostitution. And so what this particular piece of legislation did is, of course, they have to go through a lot to determine that was the case, but an order of non-disclosure would say that they could take this off of, the state would know it, this would still be on their record, the state could see it, but other people couldn't, because this wasn't something that they willingly did themselves, but they were a victim of somebody that trafficked them. HB 1396 was a bill, again, like all these criminal justice bills that I passed, got through the Senate no problem, but they all languished over in the House. And so what we do is, a lot of times when something comes back over from the House, then we'll pile on amendments. They have to, obviously have something in common with them to be able to be put on. But we did this, so let's see, this particular HB 1396, for instance, my bill that passed in the Senate was 1864, which required a peace officer to obtain a warrant to search a cell phone or other wireless communication devices. These days, our cell phones are our papers, right? And basically that was codifying what was already passed by the Supreme Court into state law. I'm going to quickly go through here. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. And of course, I filed signature reform in my first session as well. Didn't get anything out of that session, and came back the next session too, which was this past session, and filed it again. Basically, what I want to do is see it go from civil asset forfeiture to criminal asset forfeiture. And so I'm going to be working on that again. We didn't get anywhere with that. There were 3 bills filed to reform civil asset forfeiture. None of them received a hearing, and they went to state affairs, not criminal justice, which was a little frustrating for me. It should have gone to criminal justice committee. Anyway, we'll be continuing our work on that. This past session, let's see, SB 271 relating to the issuance of a citation or notice to appear for certain misdemeanors punishable by fine. I only want to see if this was from you, Sharon. No, this one wasn't. Sorry, our district attorney. Shouldn't have said Sharon. Sorry about that. Because there's some that, 557, that was yours, right? Yes. So, something that what we do as elected officials is we work with our, our district attorney and our police forces, our what is our sheriff and police chiefs. That's what I was just searching for. Our police chiefs, right? Where we work with each other and they let us know what's working, what's not working, how we can amend laws, how we can do things to help them better. And this was one from our district attorney relating to the expunction of arrest records and files for certain persons and to the return of certain fees to a person whose criminal record has been expunged. So, if you're not guilty, you should be able to get that off of your record. And of course, authorizing a fee to have that waived. This one was, I believe, we decided that the judge could determine whether that could be waived or not. HB 1904 relating to the powers and compensation of criminal law magistrates. Okay, so this one again came to us from Tarrant County. Now, help me out, you guys that know this better than I do, but so in Tarrant County, we have criminal law magistrates who are appointed by our elected judges. And they oversee just routine motions. But what they needed from us, for instance, these are just kind of small things, but mean a lot to our county, to our area. They needed us to say, yes, we could hire part-time magistrates. Because it is a county level position, the counties, only do what the state tells them they can do. And so they needed approval they needed a law passed at the state level saying that, yes, they can hire part-time. So, while this is all kind of mundane and somewhat non-interesting, this is the kind of thing that we do down there that you don't hear about, but that's very important to our area. And, it's not all about what you hear from the media ad nauseum, as y'all know what that was last session. Let's see. Then SB 599 relating to the deferral, this is what I want to bring up, relating to the deferral and reduction of waiver of certain surcharges. This is what Matt was speaking about earlier. So this is my explanation here because it's very frustrating. It's called the Driver Responsibility Program. Are any of y'all heard of this? Because sometimes I'm amazed. Yeah. I'm kind of amazed when I go places how many people know about this. I didn't until I was in elected office. So this was established, this Driver Responsibility Program was established to fund trauma care, basically, is why it was put into place. So for every traffic violation, the state applies points to your driver's license. And then those points remain for 3 years on your driver's license. Once you get to 6 points in a year's time, you're enrolled in that driver responsibility program and you receive a bill for $100. So I think what Matt was touching on too is, we double jeopardy, don't you think? I mean, you're paying, you've already, gotten through, you're paid your fine, and yet you have this driver responsibility program that you're into now that you're having to pay your way out of. And a lot of times, even though my understanding is you're supposed to get a letter saying you're in the driver responsibility program, so many people that come to me said they didn't know they were in it. And they can't get a new driver's license, and they've got this piled up over years. This is something that is a problem, and we need to take care of. I will tell you, on the Senate side, Senator Hutchinson and Senator Hall are very much working on trying to get rid of this driver responsibility program. The problem is, as with everything in government, once we pass something, we have created a lot of people who want to keep it. And I don't blame the hospitals. The hospitals want this funding for their trauma centers. So we fight the hospitals to get rid of this driver responsibility program. And I'm not putting, that's just the reality of it. And that's why I think for me particularly, I'm so like, God, we gotta quit passing these laws or doing these things that create constituents that then come down to fight it if we ever want to undo it. We all know there's so many things that need to be undone, but unfortunately we can't because we're fighting so many people on so many levels. So anyway, we are gonna work on that again next session to try to do something about that. As well as the civil asset forfeiture. I believe that needs to be criminal asset forfeiture. But again, so it kind of is a huge. It's a big issue. Very weighty, and some of them are just kind of small mundane things. But again, what I want to emphasize to everybody is that this is a conservative's bailiwick. We absolutely must keep all levels and all areas of government limited if we are limited government people, and I am. So I'm not talking about violent criminals. When I'm talking about reform, I'm talking about nonviolent. And another thing that you mentioned was about like licensing. That's another huge issue. A lot of times I'll hear about, and you might have experienced this, in jails, they'll even teach an occupation, for instance, oh, we're doing so great, we're teaching them occupations. Well, then they get out, they can't get licensing for the occupation because of barriers that government has put in place. Oh, no, you can't do that because the kind of crime that you committed. Right. Have you done some licensing reform?
We've looked at it, like if you have a felony on your record, you can't get a license here. If you have a certain amount of crimes in this area, you can't get a license here. It's almost like, I don't know if you've seen it with student loans. If you don't pay your student loans, they can take away your license, which is so counterintuitive, because if they take away your license, then you can't work to actually pay back your school loans. So I'm not sure, and I think we're gonna fix that, but I think you're right, because there's been a lot of focus on workforce training and development in the prisons, and then they get out and having this hope and expectation that they're gonna be able to actually contribute back to society and have some dignity and some worth, and then we tell them, oh no, you can't do that. So you're exactly right, we need to look at that.
And again, this isn't being soft on crime, because I'm all about, people deserve punishment. It's about being smart on crime, right? If they have received their punishment, then we need to take out the barriers that government puts in place, right? The government puts in place after they have served their time for the crime. So hopefully they will go on to be productive citizens. And certainly that's not always the case, and I'm not pretending that it is, but let's try to do what we can to not perpetuate the cycle that happens. I'm sure there's stories, I'm sure it's the police chiefs, sheriffs, they can all tell us about horrible stories of people that are just, bad people that need to be put in jail and stay there for a while. But again, this is not on that. This is for people that we need to help get out of this cycle. And I know we do a lot of good reentry in Tarrant County as well.
That's right.
Reentry programs that we have, which is to help them again, kind of get their foot, get their bearings after they've come out, kind of know, where they can go to find a job, where they can go to do different things, so that, again, they can be productive citizens, because that's really what we all want, right?
That's right, and another huge issue along with criminal justice reform is mental health.
Yes.
Because for a lot of times people have done things wrong and we feel like, okay, they gotta go to jail. Well, if you're mentally ill, then it is for which we incarcerate people, right? I mean, you put people in jail to deter them from doing it again in the future, to understand the consequences of their actions, to serve as a deterrent to other people as well. But if you're mentally ill, you can't understand or comprehend why you're there or what lesson needs to be learned or that you shouldn't do it again. So I know we've worked and other people on a real focus on mental health, because if you get that part right, to make sure these people go to jail, they go to a treatment facility, you get them the help that they need, that saves the taxpayer money from just incarcerating somebody who may just come back in a couple of months. It's actually helping the individual with their actual problems instead of just throwing them in jail. Component, you probably heard it talked about a lot, but it's a huge piece of this criminal justice reform. And it's not just once you get out, it's also what's taking place in prisons as well. And that's what we're seeing at the federal level. President Trump has talked about it in his State of the Unions. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is actually a huge advocate for this. I think his father was actually in federal prison, and that's kind of given him a glimpse into what changes need to be made or what to be made. But there's some things in the actual prison. I remember we had a bill in one of my first sessions that said you can't shackle a prisoner when she's giving birth or when she's pregnant or going into labor, you know, and you think, why would you have to say that? But that was the, that was the thing. You can't let these people just go unshackled, but we need to use common sense in some of these things. That's part of the federal, it's called the First Step Act at the federal level is, you gotta have some of these humane treatment of the prisoners even once they're in prison. In Texas, we've had problems with overheating and not having air conditioning in our prisons, and that's just not right. Yes, these people have done bad things and they need to learn their lesson. We need to treat them, they're in our custody, and we have to treat them in a humane and dignified way, even though we're trying to send a strong message back home. So it's not just once they get out, but it's actually during the prison sentence, a lot of times giving them that education. I think the seminary is such a huge, vehicle for this, because Ron Simmons had a great line on Twitter the other day. He said, why do we welcome the Bible into our prisons but not our schools, right? Because if you allowed it into schools, maybe they would never go into the prisons in the first place, right?
That's good, that's good.
And so, yeah. But it's all a part of that vocational training. A lot of these people have grown up in this poverty, cycle of poverty, or in these bad areas, and you can't blame it on that. I also get tired when we say, well, you can't blame that person because they grew up in a tough environment. Some responsibilities for the decisions that you make and the bad choices that you've made. But a lot of times there's no parent at home to tell them to go to class, to keep them educated, to shoot for higher things, and then they get into prison. They've never had any trainable skills. That's where these technical and vocational courses and those helps can come along. We give out diplomas in our Texas prisons as well. I haven't been to one of the graduation ceremonies yet, but I really want to go, actually, because they said these men and women are just beaming because they've done that. They have an accomplishment in life. Now they can go out and be a useful citizen. So again, as Senator Burton said, there's just so much in criminal justice reform that speaks to the conservative ideal and principles, right? And everybody says, hey, you're a small government guy. I say, I'm not a small government guy, because that just talks about size. I'm a limited government guy, right? I mean, when you go out camping or when it's cold at night, you want a small fire? No, you want a limited fire, right? You want it contained, but you want it to be robust, you want it to be well. So government needs to do what it needs to do to the best of its ability in the areas that it has the proper jurisdiction and role. And so I believe that, and we've gotten so far afield in that with criminal justice reform, because it's all over the place, and we've stepped into places we shouldn't and putting people in places that we shouldn't. If we got back to incarcerating the people that need to be incarcerated, helping other people out, diversion programs, we have specialty courts now for our people who go through DWIs. We have veterans courts, specialty courts. We have now first responders. Judge Vanover just applied for one of those. We're going to get a first responder. And these specialty courts have more restrictions on them. They're a little more onerous. You have to have a little more accountability and responsibility as you go through it. And we've seen recidivism go down and down and down in these specialty courts because they're coming at it from a different approach. Now, my only thing with the specialty courts is we should have that available to everybody, and we ought to be able to try to treat everybody that way. We just don't have the resources or the capacity right now, but hopefully we'll get there. So we're seeing with these diversionary programs, with these specialty courts, there are better ways to do criminal justice in our state. And I've always loved the collaboration with District Attorney Wilson and Sheriff Wayburn and everybody. I think you see that a lot. The law enforcement wants it just as bad as we do because they're caught in, they're we put in. Yep. And so they want it just as bad as anybody. So I think sometimes it gets caught up where you are with law enforcement or criminal justice reform. No, they're on the same wavelength. We just need to figure out where that is.
And we also need to get away from, I don't know if we can in this political climate, when we do want to change something, we see it as unconstitutional. You know, our oath is to the Constitution, right? So it's a lot of times if we want to have change, some people will say that's anti-law enforcement or for law enforcement. It's not either. We are making laws for them to follow, just as the district attorney was just saying. And if there's a law that we feel is unconstitutional, we need to do something about that. It doesn't have to be, you know, back the blue or not back the blue kind of thing. And sometimes we get into that area and that's very frustrating for me. Things don't have to be looked at from that prism only. What we need to do is honor the Constitution. That's what we need to do, because you want your constitutional rights, I want my constitutional rights, and that's what we're there to do, is to protect them, not to infringe on them. So again, it's not about being for the blue or against the blue or whatever, all these things sometimes that get caught up in when we're wanting to do something, some changes or some reforms. Remember, it's about the Constitution.
That's right, and a lot of times, one of the bills we've worked on together is the Penal Code Commission.
Oh, yes.
And what it does is, you may not know, right now we have about 12 to 1,500 laws outside the penal code, which is the criminal code saying what you can and cannot do, and if you do this, you're gonna go to jail, or this is gonna be your penalty. We've got 12 to 1,500 laws outside the penal code for which you can be criminally punished. So there are different administrative codes, there are different places, and some of them are, we had a bill last time about selling pocket watches that Van Taylor carried, and how you could get in trouble for that. If you thrash a pecan tree, you can go to jail for 6 months. If you dredge for oysters at midnight, you can be criminally liable. And so we've got all these, some of them aren't as old as we would think, but a lot of these old arcane laws that don't need to be there. So what we need to do is either clean them up, repeal them, move them into the penal code if they're legitimate, or combine them, because we have a duplicate law in the penal code and outside these administrative agency codes. Because I just think when you have all those laws, that doesn't give the people confidence that they know what they can do and not do. And that leads to a bad criminal justice system and a bad society. And so I think we need to get all those pushed back into the penal code as much as possible, so people know what they have, a place they know to go. And then we need to make sure that they're responsible laws, and make sure we're actually punishing people for things that they should be punished for.
We're working on that. I kind of got ambushed in the Senate hearing and that didn't go very well, but we're gonna work on that again.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. It wasn't a good day. We have those down there. Here, any questions?
Okay, I am very, very, very passionate about this. I'm a military brat. Every member of my family and siblings and so relatives have been served in different areas of the military. And I always kind of blew off PTSD until a family member has it. The police don't understand PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not like freaking out over things, but it's a head injury. And the desire to want to drink, the body is craving something to help with the pain they are suffering in their head, or some have physical injuries along with, and so they want to drink, and so their speech is slurred, they walk funny, and they have a hard time, and they are just immediately thought, oh, you're drunk or whatever. And it's like, no, I'm and they're not fast to say that it's real hard to get them to go to the doctor. They're not fast to say, no, I'm having trouble with PTSD. The police don't care. They really, family members that are very, very, very good-hearted, they don't walk real well because of injuries and PTSD and
I will tell you, this is an issue, not only PTSD, but autism. I've got some moms that are very, very concerned about that. I think, I was just somewhere, we were talking about this, I think one of the remedies, was it with you, District Attorney? Where the remedy is to identify on the driver's license, something similar to this, you know, some sort of an identification on the driver's license so that the police can know. But there's a lot of issues like that that come up. And here's the problem, I mean, it's just like teachers. You know, we all have there's so much burden on, you know, as far as education is concerned, I want them to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. You know, that's where I am. But, you know, then you've got all these different issues that they have to deal with, which I understand, but it puts a burden on them, as it does our police officers. But I understand from your perspective too. But one of the things in addition to that is like training. It was a piece of legislation, I don't think it was this past session, the session before, believe it or not, about pets coming at, because, you know, a dog is there to protect their owner. And, you know, a police officer shot and killed a family pet, which is understandable. I was very surprised that the police associations actually were way okay with the police officers kind of getting some training on how to identify, a pet as opposed to some vicious dog. I would bet that if there aren't, were you gonna say something, Sharon? Is there already this kind of thing for them to get?
So the autism bill was to take it off the driver's license and put it on the license plate.
Right.
So when the officer approaches the
That's
car,
right, that's
he
right.
knows immediately.
That's right.
Or when he approaches it, that person already has that. Also, 2 years ago, I think Representative Stickland got the legislation through to increase mental health funding for mental health training for officers.
Yes, yes.
That's been a huge help. A lot of our police agencies, especially here in the Northeast, like First Shields, Bedford, every single officer is mental health certified already. We've gotten half of our officers mental health certified at the DA's office. So that it improves those relationships so that you're not having these horrible incidents where somebody reacts badly.
Well, and I would just say, and again, I can't speak for everything, I wouldn't say that the police officers don't care, I just say that's not what they're trained in, and so when they encounter somebody, if you're belligerent, if you're obstinate, I need to do A, B, and C, that's why I think the training is a valuable thing, so you say, okay, maybe there's something else going on here than this person's being belligerent. Somebody brought up, if you're deaf, putting that on the license plate too, because if you go up to it and you're not responding to the police officer, but you're getting fidgety and you're scared, you don't know what's going on. Or they're using their hands to communicate. Right. So, I mean, these are kind of areas in criminal justice with autism, with PTSD. Those are like those small little steps in criminal justice reform that help us deliver a better criminal justice system that actually have big impacts. And so that's one area where we're all working together on the same page.
And just to let you know, I mean, these PTSD might be one that we've talked about actually, but I'm telling you that this is a topic of conversation down there a lot on these different situations that police officers find themselves in, and they need to understand, that there might be something else going on as well, so.
And there's even pilot programs
Yes.
around the state that allow, they just have units that go out and check on people they know have some mental illness or disease that might get into the criminal justice system, and they just keep a track on them. And that's their whole job, is to go around and say, how are you doing, how are you feeling, taking your medications, everything okay?
Yeah.
And they found that they've cut down on recidivism quite a bit by being proactive on those fronts, so.
Well, and I just wanted to add, because y'all were talking about the PTSD, that's the basis for the first responder program that our representatives and senators in Tarrant County began. I mean, the legislation was completely passed by Tarrant County legislators, so thank y'all for that.
Judge Bassel.
No, not yet. This is more of a statement than it is a question.
Next.
It's a complimentary statement, so just.
Keep going, please.
People don't realize that a Republican legislature and a Republican governor have signed some of the most leading legislation in this country to protect criminal defendants and make sure that only the guilty are convicted. And I must say, certainly she can speak for herself, a lot of that legislation is modeled after the procedures of the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office.
Absolutely. I find it very interesting with our district attorney because she's a tough woman and tough on crime. But like I wanted to be mentioned about, expunctions and things like, she also understands.
Not everybody needs a criminal conviction.
That's right. And so she's very active in that area. And it frustrates me so much when many think that the other party owns that issue. And that's very frustrating to me because we're doing lots of good things, as you mentioned, with the Republican governor or Republican legislature, and we're moving forward with criminal justice reform. Not only do we have a tough district attorney, but we also have a district attorney that understands we don't need everybody with a criminal conviction. And it's good for me, who is in this, I'm in a district that's 50-50. It could easily go Democrat. And so we've got a lot of Democrats in Senate District 10. And so when I go to areas that are traditionally minority, because that is their issue. It's just interesting. That is their issue. And so I have something in common I can talk to them about. And y'all had, you've had like expunction workshops and things like that.
In Tarrant County, working with the African American Bar Association, our office has sponsored an expunction clinic every single year since I took office. We've done 2 this year, and we do them in different parts of the county. This one, the last one was in Arlington. The one that we've got scheduled for next year is in Krause. So,
And did you say the line was?
Oh, the very first one we did, the line was literally around the block for people who had previously gotten in trouble, and they may have just had an arrest and not a conviction, or they might have gone to a treatment program and had finished it and didn't know they could get that expunged. But an expunction gets the arrest, the conviction, everything off the record, so the person can go on with their life. I mean, it's a huge thing. And let me say this about our legislators. So the Federalist Society was meeting in Fort Worth this last week, and you know this whole Democrat end mass incarceration stuff. You know, maybe that's a problem in the Northeast, but it is not a problem in Texas, because we were just hearing, because of the work y'all have done, there are 7 prisons that have closed in the last 10 years in Texas. We do not mass incarcerate anymore.
That's right.
The legislature for years has encouraged the judiciary and the prosecutors to find other avenues. And actually, Debbie, do you remember the number they said? Was it like a 20% decrease in prison population in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean,
And that also falls a decrease in violent crime, right? Also falls a decrease in violent crime. So it's not like we're just getting people out. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So it's not like you're just releasing them and shutting the prisons and they're still having the crime up there. You're being smart about who you're letting out.
Yeah, that's California.
Is there
We
a
have
way?
4 minutes.
Is there a way for us to be a little more proactive if we might be interested in coming down and testifying to help you on particular bills? I don't know how the committees work for the Senate side.
What do you think the led?
Yeah, I was gonna say, T-List, there's a website you can go in and you can put in criminal justice, you can use whatever words you want, keywords, and then it'll email you every time movement happens on a bill like that. And so then you know,
Or like if it's something for your committee and you can say, hey, you know, this is coming up, come on down.
Yes, absolutely. And we're gonna be much better at that. Sometimes it's really, you're kind of running, it's I should have let somebody know to come down here, but we need more Tarrant County people down there for our committee hearings. We do a lot of good things here, and we're not represented down there that much as Houston and San Antonio.
Dallas.
In Dallas. Okay, anyway, so yes, but Texas, if you get on Texas.
T-List.
That's not what I know it is. What is it?
Well, is it a keyword?
TLO. Okay, TLO.
Do you need the bill number or do you?
No, you can actually put in, like you said, criminal justice, and then you'll see the bills as they're coming up, and if something interests you, then you'll know, and you can find out when the hearing is, you can come down and.
Well, and you can put in legislation too, like if you see Senator Burton's bills before, when she files them, you can go in and put in SB 6, SB 20, SB 42, SB 386, and then every time movement happens on those specific bills.
Yeah, because you had one up there that I would like to come testify.
Are you saying?
Just on that topic, we have a citizen advocate program every year during session. We work on legislation with these people. We go and testify for committees, we talk to members, do whatever we can. And we will be doing a training in January for that, where I will teach you how to use that TLO online and exactly how it works.
Do that.
You can get more active with that.
Do that. That's really good. Oh, I have a microphone. I was gonna take Matt's away. I want to just say really
Be
quickly.
the first time.
I just say really quickly, or my campaign manager will be very angry at me if I don't say. So first off, we had our first volunteer block walk this past Saturday, which as y'all know was a monsoon. And even with that, we had 53 people show up for our block walk. Proud of y'all, very proud of y'all. So, we put plenty of pictures out on social media to let the other side know. But it was a washout. We did phone banking and letter addressing and that kind of thing, so we've got a lot of work done. But we're gonna be having block walks every Saturday from now until election day, because again, this district is a 50-50 district, we could lose it. That's just the fact. And so we need everybody out there to get our voters out in November. If we get our voters out, we win, up and down the ballot. But we just need to remind people not to be complacent. So we're gonna have another block walk this Saturday, 9:30 at the GOP office. This is actually, Matt, I don't even think you know this, but we're gonna, because it just got done. So it's, what's it?
It's Abbott, Burton, and Ron Wright.
Ron Wright. So we're walking for all four of us, or was that 4 or 5? In Matt's area, in Matt Krause's area.
I'll be there.
He didn't even know about it. This all got put together. So we're, combining our efforts, making sure that everybody knows, we need to vote straight ticket up and down the ballot. Just wanted to let you know, we'll have more information out. Okay, sorry. Yes, ma'am. Oh, we have yards. Oh, which are you talking about, Krause or? I've got yard signs right out here. Yeah. Please take a yard sign. Yard signs matter.
Unless it's for you, it doesn't matter.
All right, now, before we decided to do this topic tonight, I got a lot of pushback, like even after we decided, like, how is this relevant to the Tea Party? But I think y'all have given us good ammo, so I'm really glad you were here to listen to it. Thank you both for what you're doing. Let us know how y'all have a good, oh, don't forget, my house Friday night, okay? I'll send you an email. Y'all have a good night.